The boy beneath the grave was still knocking. Clara Hayes stopped so suddenly that the rainwater sloshed over the tops of her worn boots. For a second, she told herself it was only thunder rolling through Blackwood Valley. The sky was low and gray, pressed against the pine-covered hills, and the royal cemetery was full of sounds that could fool a frightened mind. Wet branches scraping stone, wind catching in the iron gates, mourners whispering beneath black umbrellas. But then she heard it again. 3 faint taps. A pause. Then 2 more. Clara stood at the edge of the fresh grave, her breath caught in her throat. The earth had been smoothed into a dark mound beneath a wreath of white lilies. A small silver plaque rested at its head, already wet with rain. Noah Blackwood, beloved son of the Alpha King. 7 years old. Clara stared at the name until the letters blurred. Around her, the funeral procession was moving away from the grave. Black coats drifted through the rain like shadows. The royal guards formed a silent line along the stone path. At the front, King Ethan Blackwood walked with his head bowed, one hand clenched at his side. Even from a distance, Clara could see how grief had changed him. He was tall and broad-shouldered in his dark formal coat, but there was something hollow in the way he moved, as if every step had to be remembered. Beside him walked Lady Vivian Crowe, the king's most trusted advisor. Her black umbrella did not shake in the wind. Her gloved hand rested lightly near Ethan's arm, close enough to appear comforting, but not close enough to touch him. Clara had watched her during the service. Lady Vivian had spoken softly. She had lowered her eyes at the right moments. Yet not once had Clara heard her heartbeat stumble. Clara heard heartbeats when fear was near. She had heard them since she was a child, though she had learned quickly never to speak about it. The pack called it strange. Some called it cursed. Her former mate had called it embarrassing before he rejected her in front of half the valley. So Clara kept quiet. She listened from the edges of rooms. She noticed when someone lied because their pulse changed. She noticed when a child was sick before the fever showed. And now, standing in the rain beside the grave of the Alpha King's son, she heard a small heartbeat beneath the soil. Weak. Slow. Still there. Clara looked toward the retreating procession. "Wait," she called. Her voice vanished beneath the rain. She tried again, louder. "Please wait." A guard near the path turned toward her with a frown. Clara knew him. He had been posted outside the village hall last winter when she was told she could no longer attend pack gatherings without an invitation. His expression told her he remembered too. "The service is over," he said. "You need to leave." Clara pointed at the grave. Her hand was shaking. "The prince is alive." The guard stared at her. Then his face hardened. "Do not say that. I heard him. You are upsetting people." Clara stepped closer to the mound. The rain soaked through her shawl and chilled her skin, but she could not move away. Beneath the wet earth, the heartbeat fluttered again, so faint she almost missed it. 3 taps. A pause. 2 more. Clara dropped to her knees in the mud. Behind her, someone gasped. The guard reached for her arm, but Clara pulled free. "He is still there," she said, her voice breaking as she pressed both palms against the cold ground. Far down the path, King Ethan stopped walking. Lady Vivian turned first. Her eyes found Clara across the rain, and for the first time, the advisor's perfect calm disappeared. Only for a moment. Only long enough for Clara to understand that she had heard the truth. The guard's hand closed around Clara's elbow, not roughly, but firmly enough to make his meaning clear. "Stand up," he said. Rain ran from the brim of his hat and down the side of his face. "You have caused enough trouble." Clara looked at the fresh earth beneath her palms. The heartbeat was still there. It came in fragile little pulses, almost hidden beneath the storm, but she knew what she heard. She had spent years listening to the quiet signs no one else noticed. She had heard her father's failing strength before he admitted he was ill. She had heard her younger brother's fever before his skin turned warm. She had heard the quick, uneven rhythm in her former mate's chest when he told the pack he could not choose someone like her. She had learned that people could lie with their mouths, but their hearts always told the truth. "Please," Clara said. "Just listen." The guard's expression softened for half a second, then tightened again. Behind him, mourners had stopped along the stone path. Their umbrellas formed a dark row against the gray sky. Someone whispered Clara's name. Someone else said rejected Omega with the same tired contempt she had heard all her life. She felt the old shame rise in her throat, familiar as cold rain. It would have been easy to stand up, to apologize, to leave before they could laugh at her again. But beneath the soil, the small heartbeat faltered. Clara pressed both hands harder against the ground. "He needs help," she said. "He is still breathing." The guard looked toward the king. King Ethan Blackwood had turned fully now. Rain darkened his black formal coat, and his face was so still that Clara could not tell whether he believed her or wanted to send her away. Grief had hollowed the space around him. He looked like a man who had already lost too much to risk hoping again. Lady Vivian stood at his side, her umbrella held perfectly above her silver blonde hair. "Your Majesty," she said gently, "this girl is distressed." The burial was witnessed by the royal physician. Prince Noah passed peacefully this morning. Clara heard the advisor's heartbeat then. It was calm. Too calm. Not the steady calm of someone holding back tears. It was measured, controlled, and cold. Clara lifted her head. "You knew," she said. Lady Vivian's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. "Mind your words." "I heard him under the ground." The rain seemed to grow louder. King Ethan began walking toward the grave, each step slow and deliberate. The guards moved aside for him. Clara stayed where she was, knees sinking into the mud, her hands numb from the cold. When Ethan stopped a few feet away, she could see the red rims around his eyes. He looked at the silver plaque. Then he looked at Clara. "What did you hear?" he asked. His voice was low, controlled, and close to breaking. Clara swallowed. "A heartbeat, Your Majesty. It is weak, but it is there." Lady Vivian stepped forward. "Ethan, please. This is cruel. The boy has been ill for days. You cannot allow a frightened outsider to turn your grief into false hope." The king did not look at her. "Clara Hayes," he said, as if testing the name. "If you are wrong, you will answer for disrupting my son's funeral." Clara nodded. Her hands were trembling, but she did not look away. "If I am wrong, I will accept that." Then she placed her ear against the wet earth. For one long second, there was only rain. The cemetery held its breath with her. Then came the sound again. 3 faint taps. A pause. 2 more. Clara looked up at the king, and the fear in her chest became something steadier. "He is asking for you," she whispered. Ethan's face changed. Not into certainty. Not yet. But into a kind of pain that could no longer remain still. He stepped toward the grave. Lady Vivian caught his sleeve. "Do not do this." Ethan looked down at her hand, then back at Clara. "Move aside," he said. And when the king knelt beside the rejected Omega, the entire cemetery fell silent. King Ethan lowered himself into the mud beside Clara, and for a moment neither of them moved. Rain streamed down his dark hair and gathered along the sharp line of his jaw. He placed one bare hand on the fresh earth, not far from hers, as if he were afraid to press too hard. Clara watched his face. She could hear his heart now, deep and uneven beneath the silence. It was not the rhythm of anger. It was the rhythm of a father standing one breath away from hope and terrified of what hope might take from him. "Noah," Ethan said quietly. The name disappeared into the rain. Clara held her breath. Then the small tapping came again from below. 3 taps. A pause. 2 taps. Ethan's hand tightened against the soil. His eyes closed for 1 second. When he opened them, the grief in his face had changed into something fierce and focused. "Bring shovels," he called. The command cut through the cemetery. 2 guards rushed forward, but Lady Vivian stepped between them and the grave. Her black coat moved around her ankles like a shadow. "Your Majesty, the ground is unstable," she said. The physician confirmed the prince's passing. "If you disturb the burial, you will only create panic." Ethan rose slowly to his feet. He looked taller now, not because the rain had stopped or because the crowd had grown quiet, but because something inside him had awakened. "My son is under that ground," he said. "If there is even the smallest chance that he is alive, no one will stop me from reaching him." Lady Vivian's lips parted, but no words came. Clara saw it again, the careful stillness in the advisor's pulse. It was not grief. It was calculation. The guards brought 2 shovels, their metal edges bright against the dark earth. Ethan took one, but Clara reached for the other. The nearest guard looked at her in disbelief. "You do not need to do that," he said. Clara glanced at the grave. The heartbeat below was weaker now, thin as a candle flame in a draft. "Yes, I do," she said. She pushed the shovel into the soil. The earth was soft from the rain, but heavy with water. Each scoop made her arms ache. Mud streaked the sleeves of her coat and clung beneath her nails. Ethan worked beside her without speaking. He did not tell her to move. He did not ask why she cared. He simply kept digging, faster now, his breath sharp in the cold air. Around them, the mourners watched in stunned silence. Some covered their mouths. Others turned away as though they could not bear to see hope being lifted from the ground. Clara heard whispers, but they no longer reached her. There was only the rhythm beneath the soil, the tiny heartbeat, the scrape of shovels, the rain. Then Clara's shovel struck wood. She froze. Ethan stopped beside her. The grave had opened enough for them to see the small coffin below, pale oak darkened by rainwater. It looked far too small beneath the gray sky. Clara dropped the shovel and knelt again. Her hands shook as she brushed away the loose soil around the lid. "Noah," Ethan said, his voice barely more than breath. From inside the coffin came one faint sound. Not a knock this time. A soft, uneven exhale. Clara looked at the king. His face had gone white. Lady Vivian stepped forward behind them. "This is impossible," she whispered. Clara turned toward her. The advisor's heartbeat had finally changed. It was racing now, fast and sharp beneath the rain. Clara placed both hands on the coffin lid. "No," she said quietly. "It is the truth." The coffin lid would not move at first. Rain had soaked the wood, and the earth pressed close around its edges, holding it in place. Clara dug her fingers beneath the narrow seam, while Ethan braced one hand against the side. The guards moved in to help, but the king lifted his head. "Carefully," he said. His voice was low, yet every person in the cemetery heard it. "He is still breathing." Clara felt the faint pulse beneath the lid, a fragile rhythm that seemed to echo through her own chest. She pushed harder. Ethan did the same. The wood gave with a soft groan, and cold air slipped into the small space below. For one suspended moment, no one spoke. Then the lid opened enough for Clara to see a small face beneath a pale blanket. Noah's lashes rested against his cheeks. His skin looked drained of color, but his chest rose in shallow, uneven breaths. A tiny silver charm lay against his collar, shaped like a sleeping moon. Ethan made a sound Clara had never heard from any grown man before. It was not a shout. It was the breath of someone finding the world again after it had gone dark. He reached down, then stopped, his hands trembling above his son. Clara noticed the blanket wrapped too tightly around Noah's shoulders. She loosened it gently, making room for him to breathe more easily. The boy's fingers twitched. Ethan dropped to his knees beside the coffin. "Noah," he whispered. "Dad is here." The child did not open his eyes, but his heartbeat answered Clara's gift with a faint, steady flutter. It was stronger now. Not much stronger, but enough. Clara pulled off her soaked shawl and folded it around Noah's small hands, trying to keep him warm against the rain. Behind them, the crowd began to murmur. Some people cried openly. Others stared at Lady Vivian, who stood near the stone path with her umbrella lowered at her side. Her face had gone pale, though her posture remained perfectly straight. "This is a medical misunderstanding," she said. "The prince was placed in a restorative sleep after a severe fever. The physician may have mistaken the depth of it." Clara looked up. "Then why was he buried?" Lady Vivian's eyes snapped toward her. "You are not qualified to question royal decisions." Ethan rose slowly. Noah gathered carefully in his arms beneath Clara's shawl. He held his son close, shielding him from the rain with his own coat. When he looked at Vivian, the grief in his eyes had become something colder. "Neither are you," he said. The advisor's heartbeat jumped. Clara heard it clearly. Quick, uneven, afraid. A royal carriage rolled through the cemetery gates, its wheels splashing through puddles. The royal physician stepped out with two attendants, his gray coat buttoned to the throat. He hurried toward Ethan, then stopped when he saw Noah in the king's arms. His face changed so quickly that Clara knew he had not expected this. "Your Majesty," he said, voice unsteady. "I was told the prince had already been taken to the family crypt." Ethan's gaze did not leave him. "Who told you that?" The physician looked toward Lady Vivian. The rain fell harder. Clara held the edge of her shawl around Noah's hands and felt a strange warmth beneath the fabric. The little silver moon charm at his collar was glowing faintly. Then Noah's eyes opened just a fraction. His gaze found Clara first. His lips moved, barely forming a sound. Clara leaned closer. "It is all right," she whispered. "You are safe now." Noah's fingers curled around hers. And in a voice as soft as rain, he said, "The tea lady told me to sleep." The words were so soft that Clara almost thought she had imagined them. But Ethan heard them too. His arms tightened around Noah, and his face went still beneath the rain. "What tea, lady?" he asked, lowering his voice as if the answer might disappear if he spoke too loudly. Noah's eyes fluttered. He looked exhausted, confused, and very small beneath the king's dark coat. His fingers remained curled around Clara's hand. "The lady with the shiny ring," he whispered. "She said it would help me sleep." The cemetery fell silent again. Clara did not need her gift to know who everyone was thinking of. Lady Vivian's ring was impossible to miss. A wide silver band set with a dark blue stone, always polished, always resting on her right hand like a small crown. Clara looked toward the advisor. Vivian had pulled her glove back over the ring, but not quickly enough. Her heartbeat was racing now, a hard, quick rhythm that had nothing to do with grief. "A child recovering from fever can be confused," Vivian said. Her voice was smooth, but a faint tremor touched the last word. "He has been asleep for many hours. He may not understand what he is saying." Ethan looked at her. The rain ran down his face, but he did not blink. "My son recognizes you. He recognizes everyone in the household. He said you gave him tea." The royal physician stepped closer, his expression drawn and uneasy. "Your Majesty, Prince Noah was brought to me yesterday afternoon, already unconscious. I was told he had collapsed after breakfast." He paused, glancing at Vivian before looking back at Ethan. "I examined him. His breathing was slow, and his pulse was difficult to find. I requested that he remain under observation. But he did not," Ethan said. The physician lowered his eyes. "Lady Vivian said you had ordered the family rites to begin immediately." A murmur moved through the crowd. Clara felt Noah's fingers tighten around hers. She leaned closer so he could see her face. "You are doing very well," she whispered. "Can you remember where you had the tea?" Noah frowned, trying to think. "In the sunroom, before Dad came back from the council meeting." His voice faded, but then he added, "She said not to tell because it was a surprise." Ethan's gaze dropped to the small silver moon charm at Noah's collar. Clara noticed that it was glowing more brightly now, a soft light beneath the rain. She reached toward it, then stopped. The charm pulsed once, matching the boy's heartbeat. The physician saw it too. "That is not one of the prince's usual charms," he said. Vivian's head turned sharply. "It was a gift from his mother's collection," she said. "Nothing more." Clara listened. The advisor's heartbeat stumbled at the mention of Noah's mother. It was the first true break in her careful control. Clara looked at the charm again. The moon shape was etched with a tiny symbol she had seen only once before, on the old gate of the abandoned chapel near her cottage. A circle crossed by a narrow line, like a lock waiting for a key. "This was not meant to keep him safe," Clara said quietly. Vivian's eyes met hers. The coldness in them was no longer hidden. "You have done enough," the advisor said. "You are a rejected Omega from a village that cannot pay its debts. Do not mistake one lucky moment for a place in royal affairs." The old shame tried to rise in Clara's chest. She felt it. She recognized it. Then Noah's small hand held hers more firmly. Clara looked at the king, then at the child in his arms. "I did not come here for a place," she said. "I came because he was calling for help." Ethan's expression changed. He turned toward the guards. "Take Lady Vivian's ring and secure the sunroom," he ordered. Vivian stepped back, her umbrella slipping from her hand into the mud. But before the guards could move, the silver moon charm at Noah's collar flashed bright enough to light the ring. A thin beam pointed beyond the cemetery gates, toward the dark woods behind the royal chapel. And Noah whispered one more word against Ethan's shoulder. "Mama." The beam from Noah's charm faded, but Clara could still see its afterimage in the rain, a pale line pointing toward the woods beyond the royal chapel. The cemetery gates stood open there, black iron against the mist, and beyond them the forest waited in deep green silence. Ethan looked in that direction, then down at his son. "Your mother gave you that charm?" he asked. Noah's eyes were closing again, but he nodded faintly. "She said it would know when I needed help." The king's face softened with grief, then tightened with purpose. He turned to the physician. "Take Noah to the citadel. Keep him warm, keep him watched, and do not let anyone near him without my order." The physician bowed at once. Two attendants hurried forward with blankets and a covered carriage waiting near the path. Noah's hand still held Clara's. When the attendants reached for him, he stirred and looked toward her with tired, frightened eyes. "Will you come?" he asked. Clara's heart pulled tight. She looked at Ethan, expecting him to tell her that she had done enough. Instead, he met her gaze with an expression she could not yet read. "If you are willing," he said, "I would be grateful." Clara nodded. "I will come." The words had barely left her mouth when Lady Vivian laughed softly. It was not a warm sound. "How touching," she said. The guards had moved closer, but she stood with her shoulders straight, rain darkening the edges of her black coat. A rejected Omega finds a royal child in a grave and suddenly becomes essential to the crown. Ethan turned toward her. "You will answer for what happened today." Vivian's eyes moved to Clara. "Will I?" she asked. "Or will this village girl explain why the prince's charm answered her?" Clara felt the old fear return, sharp and familiar. The charm had glowed when she touched Noah's hand. It had pointed toward the chapel woods as if it knew her. She had no explanation, and Lady Vivian knew it. But Ethan did not look doubtful. He looked toward the dark trees. "My wife spent her final months researching the old chapel," he said quietly. "She believed there was something hidden beneath it. She never told me what." Vivian's calm cracked again. "Ethan, this is not the time for old stories. It is exactly the time." He handed Noah carefully to the attendants, then removed his rain-soaked coat and placed it around Clara's shoulders. The wool was warm from him, heavy and protective against the cold. Clara looked up, surprised. "Your Majesty, you need this." "I have another coat in the carriage," he said. "You are freezing." It was such a simple kindness that Clara did not know what to say. No one had offered her comfort in a long time without expecting something in return. Captain Rowan, the guard who had first tried to pull her away from the grave, stepped forward with his head lowered. "Your Majesty, what are your orders?" Ethan looked at the chapel woods. "Secure the cemetery. Search the sunroom. And no one leaves the grounds without my permission." His eyes settled on Vivian, especially Lady Crow. Vivian's mouth tightened. "You are making a mistake." "Perhaps," Ethan said. "But it will be my mistake to make." Clara heard the shift in the guards' heartbeats. They were no longer listening to Vivian. They were listening to their king. Ethan offered Clara his hand, not as an order, but as a question. She looked once toward the carriage where Noah rested beneath blankets. Then she looked at the forest path, where rainwater gathered in dark pools beneath the trees. She placed her hand in Ethan's. Together, they walked through the cemetery gates toward the abandoned chapel, while behind them Lady Vivian called after them in a voice that had lost all trace of kindness. "Do not open what she left behind." The path to the chapel had nearly vanished beneath years of rain and fallen pine needles. Clara walked beside Ethan through the trees, his coat wrapped around her shoulders and his hand no longer holding hers, though she could still feel the warmth of it against her palm. The forest smelled of wet earth, cedar, and the faint sweetness of crushed leaves. Above them, branches swayed in the wind, shaking loose drops that glittered briefly before disappearing into the mud. Ethan moved with quiet purpose, but Clara could hear the unrest in his heartbeat. It was stronger than before, steady on the surface, yet carrying a deep strain beneath it. He was thinking about Noah. He was thinking about the small coffin in the rain. He was thinking about every hour he had believed his son was gone. "Your wife came here often?" Clara asked. Ethan slowed. Ahead, the chapel appeared through the trees, its stone walls covered in moss and ivy. One stained glass window remained intact above the old wooden doors, showing a silver moon over a sleeping wolf. "In the last year of her life," he said. "She said the chapel was built before the citadel, before the Blackwood line became royal." Clara looked at the window. The moon shape was the same as Noah's charm. "Did she tell you what she found?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "She told me she was worried about people close to the crown." His eyes moved toward the dark chapel doors. "I told her I would handle it after the council session. I thought there would be time." Clara did not know what to say. The grief in his voice was not loud. It was worse than loud. It was the kind that lived in every unfinished sentence. They reached the chapel steps. The doors were locked with a rusted chain, but the silver charm Noah had worn was now in Clara's hand. The physician had given it to Ethan before the carriage left, saying it had begun to glow again when Clara came near. Clara held it toward the chain. The small moon brightened. A soft click sounded from inside the lock, and the chain loosened as if it had been waiting. Ethan looked at Clara, surprise passing across his face. "You have seen this symbol before?" Clara nodded slowly. "On the old gate near my cottage. I never knew what it meant." The chapel doors opened with a long, tired creak. Inside, The air was cold and still. Rows of broken wooden pews faced a stone altar covered in dust. Rain-colored light fell through the stained glass, painting silver and blue shapes across the floor. Clara stepped inside first, listening. At first, she heard only water dripping somewhere in the walls. Then she heard another sound. Not a heartbeat. A faint ticking, steady and deliberate, coming from beneath the altar. Ethan heard it too. His posture changed. "Stay behind me," he said. Clara almost argued, but the memory of Noah's weak pulse beneath the ground made her pause. Together they crossed the chapel. On the altar rested a small wooden box, polished despite the dust around it. Its lid carried the same symbol as Noah's charm and Clara's childhood gate. Clara reached for it, but Ethan caught her wrist gently. "We do not know what it is." She looked at him. "Your wife did." Ethan's hand fell away. Clara placed the silver charm against the box. The lid opened without a sound. Inside lay a folded letter tied with blue ribbon, a tiny brass key, and a photograph faded at the edges. Clara picked up the photograph first. It showed Ethan's wife standing outside this chapel, smiling into the sunlight. Beside her stood another woman Clara had never seen before, holding a baby wrapped in a pale blanket. On the back, written in faded ink, were 6 words that made Clara's breath catch. "For Noah, and for the girl who hears." Clara read the words again, tracing them with her thumb as though the faded ink might change beneath her touch. "For Noah, and for the girl who hears." The chapel seemed to grow quieter around her. Even the steady ticking beneath the altar had stopped. Ethan stood close beside her, staring at the photograph with an expression Clara could not name. His wife was smiling in the picture, one hand resting on the shoulder of the unknown woman beside her. The woman had dark curls tucked beneath a plain wool scarf, and although the photograph had faded with time, Clara could see something familiar in the shape of her eyes. "Do you know her?" Ethan asked. Clara shook her head. No, but the answer did not feel true. She had seen those eyes in the mirror. Not exactly, perhaps, but close enough to make a chill move through her. Ethan picked up the folded letter. The blue ribbon had been tied carefully, as if someone had expected it to survive years of dust and silence. On the front, written in the same neat hand, were the words, "To Ethan, if Noah is ever in danger." He did not open it right away. His fingers rested on the paper, and Clara heard his heartbeat change. Beneath the king's calm, grief stirred like a storm far away. "She knew," he said. "She knew something was coming." Clara looked toward the stained glass window. The silver moon cast a pale shape across the altar. Maybe she knew someone would try to use Noah. Ethan finally untied the ribbon. The letter inside was only 1 page, but he read it slowly. Clara watched his face as his eyes moved across the lines. First confusion, then disbelief, then a sadness so deep that she looked away to give him the privacy of it. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. "My wife wrote that Lady Vivian had been searching the old royal records. She believed Vivian was looking for a way to place Noah into a sleep that would hide his heartbeat from ordinary healers." Clara's hand tightened around the photograph. Then the tea was not meant to make him sick. No, Ethan folded the letter carefully. It was meant to make everyone believe he was gone. The words settled in the cold chapel. Clara thought of the small coffin, the rain, the crowd turning away because they had been told there was nothing left to save. She thought of Noah tapping beneath the earth, waiting for someone to listen. Why would Vivian do that, she asked. Ethan looked at the tiny brass key inside the box. If Noah is gone, the council can claim the throne needs a temporary protector. Vivian has spent years building loyalty among the council families. She wanted control. Yes. His voice hardened. And she believed grief would make me easy to control. Clara's gaze fell to the photograph again. The unknown woman was holding the baby with both hands, looking toward Ethan's wife as if they shared a secret. Who was the woman beside her? Ethan took the picture from Clara gently. He turned it over, studying the faded handwriting. Then he looked at Clara. Her name was Margaret Hayes. Clara forgot how to breathe. My mother? Ethan nodded once. Your mother worked at the Citadel before you were born. My wife wrote that Margaret had the same gift you have. She could hear fear in a heartbeat. Clara stared at the photograph. Her mother had never spoken of the Citadel. She had only said that some memories were safer left alone. Suddenly, Clara understood why the old chapel gate had always made her uneasy, why the silver symbol felt familiar, why Noah's charm had answered her. The ticking beneath the altar began again, louder this time. Ethan looked down. A narrow seam appeared in the stone floor beside the altar, outlining a small hidden compartment. Clara held the brass key above it. "This is what they left for us," she said. Ethan nodded, but before she could lower the key, a voice came from the chapel doorway. "No," Lady Vivian said. Her tone was calm again, almost gentle. "That is what they left for me." Lady Vivian stood in the chapel doorway with rain glimmering on her black coat and silver blonde hair. 2 guards stood behind her, but Clara recognized them from the cemetery. Their eyes were fixed on the floor, and their heartbeats were unsteady. They had not come willingly. Ethan stepped in front of Clara without hesitation. "You were ordered to remain at the cemetery," he said. Vivian's smile was small and tired. "And you were ordered to grieve your son. It seems neither of us follows instructions very well." The chapel doors swung shut behind her, pushed by a sudden gust of wind. The stained glass window darkened, and the silver moon on the floor faded until only the ticking beneath the altar remained. Clara held the brass key tightly in her fist. She could hear Vivian's heartbeat now. It was not calm anymore. It moved too quickly, but beneath the panic was something harder. Determination. "You sent Noah into that sleep," Ethan said. "You arranged the funeral. You told the physician I had given orders that I never gave." Vivian looked at him with a strange kind of sadness. "I gave you every chance to be the king this kingdom needed. By taking my son? By showing the council what happens when a ruler lets love make him weak." Her eyes moved to Clara. "And now you have brought the one person who could unravel everything." Clara felt the old shame try to close around her, but she remembered Noah's hand holding hers. She remembered the boy beneath the rain-soaked earth, still trying to be heard. "I did not unravel anything," Clara said. "You did that when you thought no one would listen." Vivian's gaze sharpened. "You think listening makes you powerful?" "No," Clara replied. "It makes it harder for people like you to hide." The 2 guards shifted. One of them, Captain Rowan, looked toward Ethan. His face was pale. "Your Majesty," he said. "Lady Vivian told us the chapel contained proof that the prince's mother had planned to remove him from the line of succession. She said we were protecting the crown." Ethan's jaw tightened. "And did you see this proof?" Rowan lowered his eyes. "No, Your Majesty." Vivian turned on him. "You were not hired to think." The words hung in the chapel. Clara heard Rowan's heartbeat change. Fear was still there, but another feeling rose beneath it. Shame. Ethan looked at the guards. "You are not servants of one advisor. You serve the crown and the people under it." Rowan straightened slowly. The second guard did the same. Vivian's expression became still. "You are all making a mistake." She stepped toward the altar, and the small silver ring on her hand caught the dim light. Clara heard a faint hum from the hidden compartment beneath the stone floor. It answered the ring. "That is why you wanted the key," Clara said. Vivian stopped. "The key opens more than a box," Clara continued. "It opens whatever your ring has been calling to." Ethan looked down at the seam in the floor. The ticking had become louder, almost like a heartbeat. "What is under there?" he asked. Vivian's voice softened. "A choice. One your wife was too afraid to make." Clara looked at the photograph of Ethan's wife and her mother. 2 women who had known this day might come. She was not afraid, Clara said. She was preparing. The chapel shook lightly. Dust drifted from the rafters. The brass key warmed in Clara's hand, and the hidden compartment clicked open by itself. Inside was a small leather journal, a sealed glass vial, and a narrow strip of parchment marked with the royal seal. Ethan reached for the parchment, but Vivian stepped forward. "Do not read it," she said. For the first time, her voice broke. Clara looked at the journal. On its cover, written in faded gold letters, were the words, "If Vivian returns, trust the girl who hears." Clara stared at the words on the journal cover until the gold letters seemed to glow through the dim chapel light. "If Vivian returns, trust the girl who hears." Her mother had known. Ethan's wife had known. Somewhere in the years before Clara was old enough to understand why people whispered when she entered a room, 2 women had made plans for a danger that had finally found its way back. Ethan reached into the hidden compartment and lifted the journal with both hands. He did not open it immediately. His thumb rested against the worn leather, and Clara heard the grief in his heartbeat, slow and heavy beneath the rain. Lady Vivian stood very still near the altar. "You do not know what you are holding," she said. "I know enough," Ethan replied. He opened the journal. The first page held his wife's handwriting, neat and careful, with a date from 7 years earlier. He read silently at first. Then his face changed. The hard line of his mouth loosened. His eyes closed for one brief moment. She wrote that Noah's charm was made to respond to a truth singer, he said. Clara looked at the silver moon charm resting in her palm. A truth singer? Your mother called it the gift of listening, Ethan said. My wife called it something older. She believed some omegas could hear when fear was being used to hide the truth. Vivian laughed softly, but there was no confidence left in the sound. Old stories. That is all you have. Ethan turned another page. She wrote that you were gathering council votes to take control of the crown if Noah was ever declared unfit to inherit. Vivian's smile disappeared. The guards looked at one another. Captain Rowan stepped closer to the altar, his gaze fixed on the journal. Your Majesty, the council has been told Lady Vivian manages the emergency succession records. Because I was trusted, Vivian said sharply. Because someone had to prepare for the weakness Ethan refused to see. Clara listened to her heartbeat. It was fast now, but not with regret. Vivian still believed she was right. That was the coldest part. She had convinced herself that control was the same thing as protection. Ethan lifted the sealed parchment from the compartment. The royal wax seal bore his wife's personal mark, a small crescent moon beside a wolf. This is a statement from the former queen, he said. It names Vivian Crowe as the person who altered the royal records and threatened Margaret Hayes after she discovered the plan. Clara's breath caught. My mother knew. Ethan looked at her, sorrow in his eyes. She knew enough to hide you from the citadel. She left before Vivian could use your gift. Clara thought of her mother's silence, the way she had always changed the subject when Clara asked about the old chapel. It had not been shame. It had been protection. The realization hurt, but it also warmed something deep inside her. Lady Vivian moved toward the compartment. Give me that parchment. Her voice was quiet, almost pleading. Ethan did not raise his voice. No, the chapel seemed to hold the word. Vivian's hand curled around her silver ring. The ring began to hum, and the glass vial inside the compartment gave off a faint blue glow. Clara felt the sound in her chest. It was the same cold rhythm she had heard from beneath Noah's grave, a false quiet meant to cover a living heartbeat. That vial, Clara said. It is what you used on Noah. Vivian looked at her with open contempt. It was a sleeping draught. He was never meant to suffer. Ethan's face went pale, but his voice remained steady. You will not speak about my son as if he were a piece in your game. Captain Rowan stepped between Vivian and the altar. The other guard joined him. For the first time, Vivian looked alone. Clara closed her fingers around Noah's charm. It glowed softly, answering the truth in the room. Then the chapel bell above them began to ring. Once, twice, 3 times, though no one had touched it. Outside, a royal carriage raced through the rain toward the chapel, and a child's frightened voice called from within it, Dad. The chapel bell kept ringing as the carriage stopped outside, its wheels cutting through puddles on the old stone path. Ethan moved before anyone else could speak. He crossed the chapel in 3 long strides and pulled open the heavy doors. Cold rain swept inside, carrying the scent of wet pine and horses. The royal physician stood beside the carriage, soaked to the shoulders and visibly shaken. In his arms, wrapped in blankets, was Noah. The boy's face was pale, but his eyes were open. Dad, he called again. Ethan reached him at once. He gathered Noah carefully against his chest, lowering his head until his forehead rested lightly against the boy's damp hair. For a moment, the king said nothing. Clara stood just inside the chapel doorway, watching the tension leave Ethan's shoulders in a single unsteady breath. Noah looked past him and found Clara. I knew you would come, he said. His voice was weak, but certain. Clara stepped closer. I promised I would, she said. Noah held out one small hand. Clara took it, and the silver moon charm in her palm warmed at once. The physician looked from the charm to the journal in Ethan's hand. Your Majesty, he said. The prince woke during the ride. He kept asking for the chapel and for Clara Hayes. His pulse has strengthened, but he needs rest. Ethan nodded. He will have it. Behind them, Lady Vivian stood near the altar, silent now. Her ring no longer hummed. Captain Rowan and the other guard remained between her and the hidden compartment, their posture firm despite the uncertainty in their faces. Noah looked toward Vivian, and his fingers tightened around Clara's. She told me I would wake up somewhere pretty, he whispered. She said Dad would be too sad to look for me. Ethan's face changed. Clara heard his heartbeat slow, not with calm, but with the effort it took to hold himself together. He looked at Vivian. Did you tell my son that? Vivian lifted her chin. I told him a story to keep him peaceful. He is 7 years old, Ethan said. His voice was quiet enough that everyone in the chapel leaned closer to hear it. He is not a tool for your plans. Vivian's eyes flickered toward the open doors, toward the rain and the carriage, as if she were searching for a way to escape the truth waiting around her. Your wife made you weak, she said. Your son made you weaker. A king cannot rule with his heart exposed. Clara felt Noah's hand tremble. She crouched beside him and looked into his tired eyes. Your dad came for you, she said softly. He did not stop. Noah nodded against Ethan's shoulder. Ethan looked down at his son, then back at Vivian. You are wrong, he said. Love did not make me weak. It showed me what I should have protected sooner. The rain softened outside. In the quiet that followed, Captain Rowan stepped forward with the journal and the sealed parchment. These records will be brought before the royal council, he said. The physician will provide his account. The cemetery guards will provide theirs. Vivian's face remained composed, but Clara heard the fear beneath it now, quick and unsteady. It was the sound of someone realizing that control had slipped away. Ethan turned to Clara. You saved Noah when everyone else had already turned away, he said. You listened when no one would. Clara shook her head gently. He kept calling. Ethan's eyes held hers. And you answered. Noah lifted the silver charm between them. A tiny compartment on its back had opened, revealing a narrow key no bigger than Clara's thumb. The boy looked at Clara with sudden seriousness. Mama said this key is for the room under the castle, he whispered. Ethan's gaze dropped to the key. The warmth left his face. From deep beneath the chapel floor, the hidden ticking began again, slower now, like a second heartbeat waiting in the dark. The ticking beneath the chapel floor continued, slow and deliberate, but Ethan did not move toward it. He looked down at Noah first. The boy was pale beneath the blankets, his small hand still resting in Clara's. You are going back to the citadel, Ethan said gently. You need a warm bed and the best breakfast the royal kitchen can make. Noah shook his head, though the motion made him look tired. The room is important. Clara crouched beside him. It can wait until you are stronger. Noah studied her face, then nodded. Only if you promise not to let the tea lady find it. Behind them, Lady Vivian's expression tightened. Captain Rowan stepped closer to her, and the second guard quietly removed the silver ring from her hand. The moment it left her finger, the faint hum in the chapel disappeared. Vivian looked at the ring in the guard's palm, then at Ethan. You think taking that proves anything? She asked. No, Ethan said. The truth proves enough. He handed the journal and the sealed parchment to Captain Rowan. Bring these to the council chamber. Have every council member summoned before sunset. The physician will examine the vial, and the cemetery guards will give their statements. Rowan bowed. At once, Your Majesty. Vivian's gaze shifted to Clara. You will regret being noticed, she said quietly. People like you survive by staying small. Clara felt the words land, but they did not find the same place inside her anymore. She thought of the rain, the fresh grave, and Noah's tiny heartbeat refusing to disappear. Maybe, Clara said, but he survived because I did not. Ethan looked at her then, and something warm moved through the grief in his face. The physician guided Noah toward the carriage, but the boy reached back for Clara. Come with us, he said. Clara glanced at Ethan. The king did not command her. He simply held out his hand, his eyes asking rather than demanding. Please, he said. Clara placed her hand in his. The three of them left the chapel together, Noah between them beneath the blankets, while Captain Rowan escorted Lady Vivian toward the waiting guards. Outside, the rain had begun to ease. Gray clouds broke apart over the forest, and a narrow line of sunlight touched the wet stones. The carriage ride to the citadel was quiet at first. Noah slept with his head against Ethan's shoulder, one small hand still wrapped around the silver moon charm. Clara sat across from them, wearing the king's coat over her muddy dress. She watched the valley pass beyond the window, fields washed clean by rain, cottages with smoke rising from their chimneys, people gathering along the road as word spread that the prince was alive. Ethan followed her gaze. They will talk about you, he said. Clara gave a small, uncertain smile. They already do. Then they will learn to tell the truth. When they reached the citadel, servants hurried forward with blankets, hot tea, and worried faces. Ethan carried Noah inside himself, refusing to let anyone take him until the physician assured him the boy was settled in a warm room. Clara waited in the quiet hall outside, unsure where she belonged now that the urgency had passed. Mud dried at the hem of her dress. Her hands were raw from the grave. She expected someone to tell her to leave. Instead, Ethan returned holding a small wooden box. "This was in Noah's room," he said. "The charm opened it when he fell asleep." Clara looked at the box. A silver moon was carved into its lid. "What is inside?" Ethan opened it carefully. Beneath a folded note lay an old brass key, larger than the one hidden in the charm. The note was written in the same careful hand as the letter from the chapel. Ethan read it once, then handed it to Clara. It said, "When the child is safe, take the girl who hears beneath the castle." Clara looked up. From somewhere deep below the citadel, so faint that no one else would have noticed, a hidden heartbeat answered. The hidden heartbeat beneath the citadel did not sound frightened. It sounded patient, slow and steady beneath layers of stone, as if it had been waiting years for someone to finally listen. Clara stood in the quiet hall with the note in her hand, while Ethan watched her face. The royal corridors around them were warm with firelight and the soft movement of servants, but Clara felt the distant rhythm more clearly than anything else. "You hear it too?" Ethan asked. Clara nodded. "It is not a person." She closed her eyes for a moment. "It feels like a memory, like something was hidden before it could be used." Ethan looked down at the brass key resting in the wooden box. "My wife wrote that note." His voice softened on the word wife, carrying the familiar weight of loss. "She knew you would come." Clara looked at him. "She knew my mother. She trusted your mother." Ethan picked up the key. "And she trusted you, even before she met you." The thought should have felt impossible. Instead, it settled around Clara like the king's coat had settled around her in the rain. Heavy, warm, and strange after so many years of being left out in the cold. Before either of them could speak again, a small voice came from the open doorway behind them. "Dad." Noah stood there in a soft blue robe, one hand holding the doorframe. The physician hovered nearby, clearly ready to guide him back to bed, but Noah's eyes were awake and bright. Ethan crossed the hall at once and knelt in front of him. "You should be resting." Noah looked at Clara. "I was, but the charm was ticking." He held up the silver moon charm. Its tiny compartment was open again, and the narrow key inside pointed downward. Clara felt the hidden heartbeat answer. Ethan looked from his son to the stairway at the end of the hall. "The room beneath the castle," he said. Noah nodded. "Mom said it was for when people were scared and did not know who to trust." The physician began to protest, but Ethan lifted a hand. "Noah will not go below. He will stay here with you." Then he looked at Clara. "I will not ask you to follow another mystery because of what you did today." Clara heard the care in his voice. He was giving her a choice. That mattered more than he could know. She looked at Noah, who had trusted her when he woke beneath the rain. Then she looked at the brass key and listened to the patient rhythm below. "I want to go," she said. Ethan nodded once. Together, they walked down the old servant stairway, past rooms Clara had never known existed, until they reached a narrow door hidden behind a tapestry of a silver wolf beneath the moon. The brass key fit perfectly. Beyond the door was a small stone chamber filled with shelves of journals, sealed letters, and maps of the kingdom. At its center stood a wooden cradle, empty but carefully preserved. Above it hung a portrait of Ethan's wife holding baby Noah, with Clara's mother standing beside her. Clara stepped closer and saw a final letter resting in the cradle. Ethan opened it with shaking hands. His wife's words were simple. "If Noah is ever threatened, the girl who hears will find him. Do not make her a servant of the crown. Make her a partner in protecting what comes next." Ethan read the line twice. Then he looked at Clara, his eyes clear and solemn. "You saved my son," he said. "But more than that, you saw the truth when everyone else looked away." Clara glanced at the portrait, at her mother's younger face, at the years of silence that had led her here. "I only listened," she said. Ethan gave a quiet, grateful smile. "That is rarer than you think." Above them, the citadel bells began to ring. Not in mourning this time, but in celebration. Noah was alive. The council would hear the truth. Lady Vivian's lies would no longer shape the kingdom. Ethan held out the brass key to Clara. "This belongs with you now." Clara accepted it, and the hidden heartbeat beneath the floor finally slowed into silence. Far above, sunlight broke through the clouds and poured across Blackwood Valley. And in the warm room where Noah rested, the silver moon charm gave one soft glow, as if someone far away had heard the promise being kept.